Good evening, SportsZonians. How's everybody doing out there tonight? I am Mike Aglioloro. I am your host for this is Sports Zone. Coming to you live like we do each and every week here via the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Radio Network. We got a good show for you tonight. We'll be joined by Dave Hastings in a matter of moments. Be joined by Erich in a little while as well. And we got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to run down everything that happened during the NFL Divisional Round weekend. Just to give you a little recap here, the Cowboys did lose to the St. Louis Rams in a game where they were decimated by the running back combo of C.J. Anderson and Todd Gurley. You know, all I heard in the week leading up to the game from whatever pundit you want to talk about, all they were saying was whichever team had the running back that went for over 100 yards was probably going to win the game. And the Rams decided, well, we got two who are capable of doing that. We're going to let them both do it. And the Cowboys sure as hell weren't exactly trying to stop them. The final score was 30-22, but Lord knows the score makes it look like that game was much closer than it really was, as this game was over by halftime. I'll tell you that. So you got that. Then you have the Kansas City Chiefs blowing out the Indianapolis Colts by a score of 31-13. The New England Patriots dominating the Los Angeles Chargers. Almost said Clippers there. 41-28. Another game where the score makes it look like it was much closer than it really was. Patriots scored on just about every possession they had in the first half, and the game was over. And then the New Orleans Saints beat the Philadelphia Eagles, and the only game that really had any sort of drama to it. The Eagles were leading this for the first half and most of the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And then the Saints came back to make a final score of 20-14. Of course, Alshon Jeffrey had that big drop where the ball went through his hands late in the game. And that might have been able to change the dynamic of the whole thing, but one way or another, we are headed into championship weekend in the NFL. You have the Rams going into New Orleans to take on the Saints. And in the AFC, you have the Patriots on the road going into Kansas City to take on the Chiefs and their old friend Andy Reid. And it'll be very interesting to see how the Chiefs are able to handle the Patriots in Arrowhead. And we know Andy Reid does not exactly have the best record in, I don't really want to say the postseason, because he's gotten very far. I mean, with the Eagles, they went to 3 straight conference championship games, and they didn't make the one Super Bowl. The conference championship does seem to be the high water mark for Andy Reid teams, though, for the most part, though. And, of course, he does have the one Super Bowl appearance, and we remember what happened with that one with the Eagles losing to the Patriots in what was the Patriots' 3rd Super Bowl championship. So it'll be very interesting to see how these teams are going to play each other. And, you know, the Patriots have never made it to a Super Bowl when they were on the road in the championship game. So you got a lot of drama heading in to conference championship weekend, at least in the AFC side of things. In the NFC side of things, I don't really think I'm going out on a limb here when I say it's the Saints' game to lose. They are in New Orleans. They're going to be the favorite heading into this game. So with that, we'll get into that a little bit more later. Dave Hastings is on the show. Dave, how you doing? Dave, are you there? Dave, are you there? Okay, I think it was a problem on my end. Dave, are you there?
I'm with you, my man. How we doing?
All right. Sorry about that. Good to have you for a full show tonight, Dave. How has your week been?
We're moving along, my man. We're moving along. Could be better, could be worse.
I know that feeling. Absolutely, man. So let's get into it. We'll be joined by Erich probably within the next 15 minutes or so. Let's start talking. Unless you have something you would like to start off with tonight, I would say let's go into the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. You have anything else you'd like to start the show off with?
I mean, I got to shout out Derrick Rose. About 20 minutes ago, scored his 10,000th career point. I know a lot of people, and myself included, really didn't think he might ever get to there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, good for him. It's funny. Now that you mention that, there was actually something I did want to bring up with you. I mean, it's a couple weeks late, but what were your thoughts when Tom Thibodeau got fired as Minnesota head coach?
Honestly, it was kind of mixed because, I mean, I expected him to get more out of that Minnesota team with the talent that they had, especially once they brought in Butler. I was kind of shocked, but at the same time, it's like I don't know if he has that human side to him to be a head coach, if that makes sense. I think he's one of those truly old school coaches, and I just maybe it's the fact that this just younger generation really doesn't respond to the way he coaches. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I was shocked by it. I always loved him as a coach. I loved that he pushed, to the last minute, whether he was up 20 or down 20, and I had very mixed feelings on that one. I was kind of shocked by it, but at the same time, I think it kind of speaks on what kind of head coach he really is.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way on that. What you were saying with the human side, I definitely get what you were saying on that one. And I think that old school approach, I think it works with a certain type of player. And what you're saying about the younger generation, the great coaches, and this is not a knock on Thibodeau. I think what separates the really good from the great in terms of coaches is if you're able to reach that younger generation that always comes in. 'Cause it seems like the younger one, it takes something different to reach a different generation as opposed to one you had success with in the past. I mean, you look at what he was able to do with that Bulls team with Rose and Gibson and Joakim Noah and Carlos Boozer and all those guys, and then you look at Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, and I think it probably is something in the mold of what Butler was saying. The problems he had with them in terms of their work ethic, and maybe he just couldn't reach those guys.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, though, because I'm with you, and I think the same thing, but then you also think back to why Butler wanted out of there so bad. Was it really his teammates? Was Thibodeau part of it? Like, it brings up a lot of mixed emotions when it comes down to how I look at Thibodeau, just due to the fact that I held him in such high regard. But, I mean, Chicago, I think he kind of got ousted due to things he couldn't control, like injuries, and, they kind of held it against him for playing his guys too hard, and it's like,
well, he also clashed with the front office, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of it kind of focused around the fact that they felt like, they had, it was Luau Dang, and then it was Jimmy Butler, and he was just kind of running them into the ground. I mean, the year where Rose got hurt and all his injury problems started, Chicago was up 11 with 1:45 left. Like, that game was basically over. They just had to execute. You didn't need to have Rose out there. And it's just one of those things where maybe that's just an issue that him and front offices don't see the same way, where he just believes that his players need to play.
And he certainly did play those guys, I'll say that. Now, I don't really know if this is still true. Like, obviously, this is from a couple weeks ago, but I know the big report in terms of who they were looking at for his replacement. Did you hold any credence to the idea that Fred Hoiberg would replace Thibodeau in Minnesota like he did in Chicago?
I mean, you never know with the rumors. I mean, but I don't know why an NBA team would look at Hoiberg like a good prospect. As a good prospect for head coach.
Yeah, especially when you look at what he wasn't able to do with the Bulls. I mean, and obviously they didn't exactly give him a lot of ready-made talent to work with, but it's not exactly like he was great in terms of developing talent.
No, he really did nothing for that franchise. I mean, him and Paxton, and I mean, they really kind of they took that whole idea of, well, if we can't get past LeBron, we might as well tear it down again. Like, and maybe by that point, our young players will be in their prime, and he'll be out of his prime or out of the league or out of the conference. You know, and I think they took that too far. I mean, I get it. You know, with Rose being injured, Butler didn't want to be there. You know, Noah, obviously, we've seen where his career has gone since he's left Chicago. But you know, you can't act like Gibson hasn't played. You know, that he's played decently well for the role that he has. You know, I don't know. I think that Hoiberg, the idea of Hoiberg replacing Thibodeau is believable, but I also don't think it's something that would make much sense for any NBA team to really do.
True. All right. Yeah. With that, if you got anything else you'd like to bring up, feel free.
No, I happened to see that on Twitter before I called in, and it just, you know, I'll always love and respect D Rose. So
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, then we can move on to the NFL and start looking at this past weekend in the divisional round. And because it's you and me here, I'd say let's start with the Cowboys debacle at the Los Angeles Rams. So I happened to watch this game, and so this game was over at halftime in my eyes. You know, all we've heard about all season was how good this Dallas defense was. And this was a team that simply was not prepared for how much the Rams were going to run that ball. And I'll tell you this. I know Anderson had a very good last couple games in place of Todd Gurley, but this guy looked like it was 2014 again. And then you had him and Gurley going at it, and the Cowboys just simply could not handle it.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, the one thing Dallas always tried to, you know, that they talked about during the year was playing bully ball, and they're the ones that got bullied. You know, there's really no other way to put it. I mean, 30-22 kind of makes that game seem a little closer than it really was. But, you know, what I always find funny about football is that when it's really all said and done, every single play matters. But when you look at a game, you can always point to one play that, you know, cost your team the chance to win or, you know, whatever it might be. And if you think back to the game in the fourth quarter, I think it was 3rd and 7, and Dallas gave up a 11-yard run, first down run to Goff to basically put the game away. And if you watch the replay of that play, you have Jeff Heath standing there staring in the backfield as Goff runs around him. If Heath makes that tackle, Dallas gets the ball, and you don't know what happens. So it's funny to me to think that when it's for how much they got beat up and ran over and bullied, their one good defensive well, not even good, but just smart defensive play and an offensive touchdown and 2-point conversion from forcing overtime. It's one of that's so as a Cowboys fan, I left that game disappointed from the performance that you saw out of that defense, but the level of respect you have for the Rams offense makes it hard to really truly knock Dallas. So I didn't walk out of that game thinking, oh crap, you know, here we go again. Next year they're going to play a first place schedule and they're going to be in, you know, not be able to make playoffs, blah, 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 whatever. I personally, you know, I think if they keep Scott Linehan as offensive coordinator, that I will be so disappointed. That I'll feel worse, almost as bad as I did Saturday night after they lost. Because keeping him, to me, would be one of the biggest mistakes they can make.
Well, as of right now, I think the report came out yesterday that it looked like they were keeping him. And now you hear that may not be set in stone. But, yeah, I mean, you know, looking at the game, I didn't think their offense played terribly. But once again, I mean, we've said this before, they don't really make adjustments. to things that aren't working to try to, do something else. Even though I tell you this, I can't remember the last time the Cowboys went for it on fourth down in the first quarter, and to see them do that early in the game, I was pretty impressed by the fact that they were doing that. And that drive didn't lead to a touchdown or anything because the Cowboys don't score on their first possession ever, really. But things like that, I would have liked to see them take a few more risks or at least try different things as opposed to being very conventional. And unfortunately, that's what Linehan is known for. He's not a big risk taker. So I wouldn't mind seeing a new coach. But as Erich has pointed out from time to time, maybe you know this one. Who's the one who actually calls the offensive plays? Is it Linehan or is it Garrett?
It's Linehan.
It is Linehan.
And the one thing, if you really look into it, if you take the time to look into it, one thing you'll find out is that one of the things Romo did the most that drove Linehan nuts is 9 out of 10, like not 9 out of 10, but I'd say almost 60% of the time, he changed the play call that Linehan sent in.
No doubt.
Like it's one of those things where to me, it seems like the game's officially past Linehan. And Garrett has a connection to him, but bottom line is until Jerry comes out and makes a legit public statement that blah, blah, blah is the coach or not the coach, I don't give a crap what I see in the media. I don't care. Unless it comes straight from Jerry's mouth, I don't care. Because when it's all said and done, Jerry's making the decisions, and if they want to talk him out of it, you need Steven, Jason, you need all of them to talk him out of it, and I can guarantee you Stephen Jones ain't going to try and talk him out of that one.
Oh, you mean replacing Linehan? Yeah, I think at that point he definitely, I can't see him doing that. But let me ask you something. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of the names that are out there in terms of, free agent offensive coaches. If you could pick one guy to be the new offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, who would it be?
Honestly, I wanted the guy that got the head coaching job in Arizona.
Oh, Kingsbury?
Yep, that's who everybody I was all those beat writers and stuff that I follow from Dallas that I actually really like and respect. They all were big fans of the idea of him coming to the NFL as an offensive coordinator.
That's not a bad choice. I don't know too much about him. I know he had a losing record at what was it, Texas Tech he was at? But I could see why that would make sense as an offensive coordinator more than it would be as an actual head coach. So, and
me, the most important thing is to me, whoever they would have as offensive coordinator realizes you have to utilize the fact that Dak Prescott can run the ball. We ran less RPOs than teams with Drew Brees and Tom fucking Brady. That's absurd.
Yeah.
That is literally just absurd. Every team in the league runs the damn RPO. You don't need a dual threat quarterback to run an RPO. When you have a dual threat quarterback that can run an RPO, it makes it even more dangerous. And I don't get, I'm not saying he should be Lamar Jackson and run the ball 17 times a game. I'm saying 5 to 7 design plays where he can run the ball. And that's it. It's all you have to do. You need to make it so the defenses cannot just strictly key on Ezekiel Elliott. That defensive end on the whatever side needs to be held up, worrying about Dak getting loose on the outside. They can't just be able to just crash on Zeke. And if you watch that game, they did it all game long. And like you said before, Dallas made no adjustment on offense to combat that. It's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. And just to give a quote here, because Jerry Jones, he did have a radio interview. It was either earlier today or earlier in the week. And the quote they have when it comes to Linehan, because it doesn't sound like he gave him a vote of confidence. The quote is, "This is the time when these things are thought about. This is the time when you may see an opportunity next week that you didn't know existed next week in the area of personnel or the area of coaching." So I think at the very least, they're thinking about replacing him, which I think would only be for the better. But let me ask you something. Can you remember, because the Cowboys aren't exactly known for a team that really has a lot of cap space ever. And then they're going to come into this offseason. They're going to have over $54 million in cap space. Now, obviously, the majority of that is probably going to lock up some of these guys long term, whether it's Elliott or Dak or DeMarcus Lawrence or Byron Jones or maybe a couple other guys. But how about that? When's the last time you can remember the Cowboys having that much in cap space?
You would have to go back to the Parcells days.
That's a long time. That's a long time.
You would have to go back. That would probably be the last time they had money like that. And because Parcells wouldn't go out and spend a lot of money on a free agent quarterback, he went and got Drew Bledsoe for basically pennies. And then we know what happened after Bledsoe.
And before him, it was Testaverde, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he didn't. And then you had Quincy Carter. You had Drew Henson.
Yeah. The dark days.
So, yeah, I mean, it's been about 15 years.
Yep. I honestly thought it was longer because, honestly, I don't remember them ever having that much cap space in this period of free agency, which, the modern era really started in the 90s when they were winning the Super Bowls and everything. And I don't ever remember them having cap space because that was when they signed Emmitt Smith and Deion Sanders to those 7-year contracts. And that's kind of when it all started for them. So, anyway, moving on. Let's talk about some of the other games here. Let's stick with the Saturday games. Indy, Kansas City. I know I think we were all kind of rooting for Andrew Luck to win this game, even though I know I picked the Chiefs last week. At the end of the day, Chiefs win 31-13. So I'll let you go. Any thoughts on this one?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think some of the things you got to realize is that the Colts are in a really good spot. They already have Luck locked up for like the next 5 seasons. They did an amazing job with their draft this past offseason. They have a head coach that the team believes in. They rallied and won 10 of their last 11 games and ended up winning the division. So I mean, really, I think the Colts are in a good place. And I think the other thing you take away from this game is that if this is Patrick Mahomes in his first full season starting, what's he going to be when he's in his 8th season starting and still can run, but now knows defense is 10 times better?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this kid literally, I mean, what we're watching Breeze and Brady do record-wise, we watched Peyton do a few years ago. This kid could literally shatter every single one of them. I mean, he shows that kind of potential. Now, obviously, as well as I do, it doesn't matter what you do in your first year. It matters what you do year in and year out when it comes down to the quarterback position. But, yeah. I mean, this kid has no limitations to what he's able to do, and it's ridiculously impressive.
And to kind of go with that, I mean, the 2 things I want to point out in terms of the Chiefs. With Mahomes, I heard someone say it earlier in the week. I can't remember who said it, but how much did this guy benefit from having a clipboard in his hand in year 1 behind Alex Smith and not really having to do anything but just soak in everything that was going on and be able to learn from that position? I mean, every quarterback learns at a different rate. I mean, you look at Andrew Luck, he got thrown into the fire. He was starting from day one. I've always been of the mind that, yeah, when you start from day one, you're learning on the fly. You're able to soak things up. You'll get better in the long term. And obviously, we've seen it with the majority of quarterbacks who were taken in the first round. It was Peyton Manning, Luck, a few others you can name in there. But you look at the ones who were able to sit and learn for at least a year. And it's Mahomes, it's Aaron Rodgers, and I think Roethlisberger and Eli Manning kind of fit into that category too. I know Manning was behind Kurt Warner, and I'm pretty sure he had at least half a season on the bench. And Roethlisberger was behind Tommy Maddox. I think it was kind of the same thing. That Tom Brady sat behind Bledsoe for his first year and a half. So the ones who are able to sit and learn, I just think that helps these guys so much. And you definitely see it with Mahomes, because I really wonder if he would have been able to come in and be like this without having that year to just learn. I mean, obviously, the kid's got the talent. He would have been fine eventually, but I feel like there would have been a lot more growing pains than we really saw from him this year. And then the other thing I'll throw in there is give the Chiefs credit for being able to recover from the Kareem Hunt mess. Because you look at this kid, Damian Williams. He comes in, he was the third string quarterback, third string running back. And then Hunt has his whole deal. Spencer Ware gets hurt in that first week. And this guy has had 100-yard games, I think, in 3 of his 4 starts at least. He gets 129 yards, a touchdown off 25 carries this week. So to be able to replace him and have Mahomes for the future. And now I don't really think they got to worry about the running back position next year. I think this guy would be pretty good for them next year. Amazing that they were able to handle both those situations that way.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I love Damian Williams. He helped lead me to 2 fantasy championships this year. So
I don't even want to talk about my fantasy team because I had Hunt and Melvin Gordon. So that killed my season. But continue, my friend.
I'm a big fan of him, but yeah, you're right. I mean, that shows you the type of scouting and stuff that they're able to do, as well as how good their offensive line is, plus the threat of having a passing game like Mahomes. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the combination of all that and the kid's able to perform, I wouldn't be surprised if they use a draft pick on a running back this year, just because you can take one in the 3rd or 4th round and still feel confident he can make your roster, as a backup and special teams. So I don't doubt that they'll take a running back, but I think they feel pretty confident about the idea of him possibly being their starting running back in week 1. And since I'm in a keeper league, in one of my leagues, that would be freaking awesome because I'd have a starting running back for the 16th round pick. But anyway, we'll keep it moving.
I think at the back. I'm sorry, Dave. I was just going to say, at the very least, they don't have to overemphasize getting another running back. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean, and going back to what you said about whether, sitting them really has an impact, I mean, I think that your dream situation as a team is to be able to draft a guy that could start day 1 but not need him to start day 1. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Green Bay is the perfect example of that. And I think that's, I also think that's kind of where, even though you'll never hear him say it, I think deep down inside, Belichick kind of was hoping he'd get the same thing with Brady to Garoppolo, but
yeah,
Brady ain't ready to go, and I think Belichick knows he deserves the respect to keeping him on that team, for as long as he can play well. But I think it's one of those things where it all depends on the situation more than anything else. If you have the right coach and the right game plan, you can pull it off and make it work. You go back to Prescott, his rookie year, starting all 16 games. It was the perfect setup of, a head coach that can handle a young team and the right balance of, veterans and, rookies and young kids that all meshed just very well that year, and things went well. So, I think that to me is, one of those, like I said, I think the quarterback situation when it comes down to letting them sit or playing them, I think is almost just as reliant on the team itself and the coaches as it is the quarterback.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. And what you said about the Colts being set up perfectly for next year, I totally agree with you on that. I mean, the GM they got has done a very good job of knowing which areas to target and to improve on. I mean, you look at what they were able to do with the offensive line, especially with getting the kid with the 6th overall pick, whose name is escaping me at this point. Getting him and being able to have him anchor that offensive line. I mean, it looks totally different. I mean, how many times did we say, man, what would Luck be able to do if he actually had a bunch of blockers in front of him? And then this is the first year it seems like he hasn't had to worry about freaking fighting for his life and surviving to stay on the field on every game. And how much of a difference has that made?
Exactly. And again, I mean, that's, as a Cowboy fan, we can speak on firsthand is when you look at those prime years of Romo, but, post Flozell Adams and, Andre Garrard and some of the good offensive linemen he had, and pre-Tyron Smith and Zach Martin and Travis Frederick, that 2-3 year window, I mean, you really kind of wasted some of Romo's prime years because he was running for his life so much. And that's really kind of, those years are really kind of the beginning of his injury problems.
Yeah.
You know, and being able to block for your quarterback, especially one that is coming off shoulder surgery, and on top of that, you know, is at the age he's at, if you can keep him upright and healthy, you know, that 8-year contract extension they gave him 2 years ago will still seem like a great investment, because if you think about it, they'll probably give him an extension, you know, at the, let's say, the 5-year mark of it, cut money off of the back end of it, front load it again, and keep themselves in a good cap situation. So it's like they really could be setting themselves up. I mean, you know, not to go off of the games, but, you know, another random topic that kind of came up is the idea of Antonio Brown asking for a trade out of Pittsburgh. Could you imagine giving Andrew Luck the weapon of Antonio Brown with T.Y. Hilton as well?
Cool.
And Eric Ebron at tight end? All of a sudden, that's a dangerous team, and they still have their draft picks they get to use. You know, and they can start, because to me, I think you notice their biggest hole was pass rush. They could not get to Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they need that pass rush. They got Darius Leonard at the linebacker position. So you're really kind of working on your levels. And I like where Indy's set up. I think they really kind of are set up to maybe go on that type of stretch that they had with Peyton.
And you think about it also, and this will be the final point, then we'll move on to the Sunday games. They have one of the best trade chips in football right now, because they still have Jacoby Brissett, who, if they wanted to, they could probably get at least a second-round pick for him too, and that can only help their building efforts.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think they want to get rid of him, though. I think they like him.
I think it depends on the offer. I don't think he's untouchable at this point, because I get that you want the insurance just in case something happens to Luck. But, I mean, before the shoulder injury, Luck was a pretty durable guy. I mean, as durable as you can be for a guy who was taking hits as much as he was. And now that they've kind of eliminated that problem, I think they're more inclined to trade Brissett now, at the very least, than they were a year ago.
I'll agree.
Yeah. So definitely something they got to at least be thinking about, depending on the offer. So let's move on. So New England dominates the Chargers by a score of 41-28. This, I had picked the Chargers last week to win, and this really looked like, in my opinion, I feel like this was Phillip Rivers' last really good shot to make a serious run in the playoffs, possibly in the Super Bowl run. And the Patriots just said, no, not today.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the the Rams-Cowboys game being over at halftime. But that game, you had to watch the game to know it was over at halftime, because it was you knew physically the Rams they showed up more than the Cowboys did.
Absolutely.
The Patriots-Chargers game, on the other hand, you knew that game was over. All you had to do was flip to it at halftime. When you had Tom Brady walking off the field angry because they didn't get a field goal off as time expired and they were up 35-7.
Yeah.
You didn't need to watch a single play of that game, that first half, to know that game was over. Brady walking off mad when he's up 28 points, that spells nothing but bad news for whoever they're playing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was pretty sporting of them to let them score 21 points in the second half, but it didn't change anything. No,
and you know what? You got to – seriously, for how much we all really kind of just hate New England at this point, like, it's like, yay, yippee, you're good, we know, fuck off, because our team – I wish my team was as good as yours on a consistent basis. But anyway, you got to say one thing, man. That team – they just figure out ways. Their schemes, the way they come out, the different ways they attack you. I think it was James White, I might be wrong on the name, listed as a running back, lined up as a running back, had 0 catches, or 0 rushing yards and 0 rushing attempts, but had 15 catches.
Yeah, you're right.
it's just one of those things where you're just like, as a defense and a defensive coordinator and a head coach, are you really going to sit there and say to yourself, all right, there's no way they line him up back there 15 times and all 15 times they throw him the ball? Like, no, like, you're not going to think that way, but they do. So it's like, no matter how you look at it, they took this scheme the Los Angeles Chargers used to shut down Baltimore and found every hole in it because they knew that they were going to ride with that scheme because of how well it worked against the Ravens the week before. And they picked them apart. You just have, for how much I'm so sick and tired of them. At the same time, you just have to respect what they do. I mean, dude, this is their 8th AFC championship game in a row. This is Tom Brady's 11th, I believe, championship. Somebody, I think it was Trey Wingo from ESPN, posted up a stat that if you take out the 1 year Brady missed 15 games when he got hurt and Castle played,
yeah,
if you take out that 1 year, Tom Brady has a higher career percentage of making it to the AFC championship game than LeBron James does free throw percentage.
Oh, Jesus.
76.4% to like 75.8 or some shit like that. But he literally, if you exclude that 1 year, since he only played basically a quarter and a half or whatever it might be, you exclude that one season, Tom Brady's made it to the AFC championship games more consistently through his career than LeBron James has made free throws. Mind-blowing.
That's unbelievable. I did not hear that stat before, so that's just crazy. But to kind of switch gears for a moment, let's talk about Phillip Rivers here because, I said this to kind of start it off, and I believe it. This was his best and could quite possibly be his last shot to really go far in the playoffs. And I think he's another one that kind of falls into the Romo category where he's had a great career, at least in terms of regular season numbers. But for whatever the reason, it's just never come together for him in the postseason, whether it's the roster around him, whether it's the defense not really living up to what the offense is doing. It's always been something there. So when all is said and done in Rivers' career, you can't – unfortunately, for quarterbacks, the bar is a little higher in terms of getting to the Hall of Fame, where, you look at what he's done, and as great of a quarterback as he's been, you can't consider him a Hall of Fame quarterback at this point, can you?
I think he would get in. I just don't think it would be first or second ballot. Like, I think it would take a few times before he got in. You got to keep in mind, though, when you look at the people that vote on these things, like, your sports reporters and those that have their votes on who get into the Hall of Fame, they all love Phillip Rivers. They love how he plays. They love his attitude and his approach to the game. They love that he's not like most quarterbacks and he'll get in a linebacker's face and talk shit. I still remember the days of him and Jay Cutler going at each other when Cutler was on the Broncos. He's a football player first and a quarterback second. So a lot of people really do love, Phillip Rivers. So I think he gets in. I just don't think it would be his first or second go around. I think he'd be a little bit go through it a few times before he got in.
Well, let me ask you then, what do you think would be the difference between him and Tony Romo then? Because I know we both kind of agreed that as much as we love Romo, he wouldn't be considered a Hall of Famer. When you look at everything. I know Rivers, in terms of what he did in the regular season, was always, you could put Rivers in a top 5 category in any given year. Romo may not have ever really been considered a top 5 quarterback. But what would you think the difference would be between the two of them?
The playoff success.
But Rivers, he didn't really have any.
He may not have ever made it to a Super Bowl or anything, but he's at least played in a championship game. He's won a couple playoff games, and I think that would be your separator between the two of them.
All right. Well, let's get someone else in on this debate because we have Erich on the show tonight. Erich, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Sorry for the lateness tonight, fellas.
That's okay. Let me ask you, though, because We were going through the division round of the NFL playoffs this week. We got to the Chargers and the Patriots game. We were kind of talking about Philip Rivers' career a little bit here because we were saying this was probably his last best shot at making a deep playoff run. We were talking about whether or not we thought he was a Hall of Famer. Dave thought he might get in on like his second or third ballot, maybe not the first one. And I posed the question, what do you think the difference is between Rivers and Romo? And because I don't really feel like either of them really have postseason success, but I'll pose it to you. Do you think Rivers is a Hall of Famer? And if you do, what's the difference between him and Romo?
Well, I'm going to pose it to you differently because I'm taking Romo out of the equation. I don't really have a thought on Romo. I don't think Romo is a Hall of Famer. So I'm going to take him out because I think the person that the people he's going to be compared the most to are the people in his draft class, and Ben Roethlisberger and Eli Manning, and he doesn't have the rings that they have. So in my opinion, you have to put Roethlisberger and Eli in before Rivers ever gets even a sniff.
Would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, that's fair. I can definitely give you that one.
And so, I just wanted to throw this out there. That was one thing I did forget to say was the fact that the one thing that does work against him is the fact that he will be compared to his draft class with Eli and Roethlisberger, who both have 2 rings. So that does hurt him. But like I said, he's played in an AFC Championship game. He's won some playoff games. I mean, Eric, I'm not sure if you were part of that conversation, but me nor Mike think Romo's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's a Ring of Honor in Dallas, but he's not a Hall of Famer in the NFL.
Yeah. And that was the only reason why I brought Romo up because, like you said, I don't think Romo's a Hall of Famer. But I was just wondering why you would consider Rivers in that category when, in my opinion, he didn't have the success over Romo. So that's all on that.
I think better overall career for Rivers. I think he was more consistent, and I think he did it with less to work with. I think that Charger franchise isn't the franchise that the Cowboys is. And I just think that he did more with less during his career than Tony Romo did. I think Tony Romo had more to work with.
I don't know if
I won't agree with.
Yeah, because honestly, if you look at them, I think both franchises went through periods where they both had other players to work with, but both went through times where they had nothing to work with. And
I mean, you got to keep in mind, Rivers for majority of the beginning of his career had Damian Tomlinson, a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He had Darren Sproles when he was young and even more spry than he still is at whatever 32, I think he is now.
And they had Michael Turner on that team too before he went to the Falcons.
Either way, whatever. I mean, in all things considered, guys, I don't think we should dive into a serious argument about this. AFC and NFC championship games coming up. And I got to make sure, Mike, I tell Eric that stat about Brady versus LeBron real quick. So,
do it. Go ahead real quick. We have the time. Time.
Eric, I'm not sure if you've heard this. I'm pretty sure that it was Trey Wingo that tweeted it. But if you remove the one season from Brady's career where he missed the 15 games and he was knocked out in that week 1 game, if you remove that season from his career, he's made the AFC Championship game at a higher percentage than LeBron James's career free throw percentage.
I think that's a pretty awesome stat for him. I mean, he's made it 13 or 14 out of 17 years in his career, or more than that.
I think it's 11 out of 17. So that's why, yeah.
No, it's higher than that.
He's only missed it 1 time, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, this is his 8th year in a row. I know that much.
Oh, well, truthfully, I just meant playoffs. So I know you're talking about conference championship games.
Either way, yeah, it was.
Either way, they're just as consistent as it gets, and that's why I couldn't take the Chargers this past weekend. They were running into a buzzsaw there in New England. Plus 2 games on the East Coast in 2 weeks, playing early times. That's not what the Chargers do. And they had a good road record this year. I had to say I saw that one coming.
Mm-hmm. All right, fair enough. Let's go to the last game here real quick. So we got the Eagles, who actually They had a lead for the majority of this game, and then they kind of blew it in the second half. Saints win 20-14. I'll get you guys' thoughts on this one. And Eric, we'll start with you here.
Don't have much thoughts other than I'm glad we don't have to hear about any more Nick Foles magic. I kind of thought that even after the slow start, the Saints will find some way to score. You can't keep that offense down really all game. I mean, it's only happened once or twice this season, and I didn't really see it happening there. This is honestly the rematch everybody was looking forward to. These, four teams really were the, pretty close to the standout. So, I mean, as far as the Eagles go, it's a nice run for them this year. But they weren't what they were last year in that run. And I don't know. I think it could be the Saints year.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the things that really stuck out to me about that game is, Sean Payton really changed the momentum for his team when he called for the fake punt. And, then fourth and goal on the 1 yard line, doesn't even try to run it in, does a fake, screen out route touchdown that, really kind of got everything going and flowing in New Orleans' favor. I mean, the first quarter was all Philly. After that, it was mainly New Orleans. And then that fourth quarter was kind of tight. It really just kind of comes down to what would have happened if Alshon Jeffrey doesn't let the ball go through his hands and it gets picked off. Because, I mean, that's really, you don't know if Foles' magic continues if he doesn't drop that pass. But he drops it, New Orleans and intercepts it. And like Eric said, we get the four teams that, at the halfway mark of the year we expected to see. And I think if you're a football fan and you just want to watch some really good matchups, this is the weekend you wanted.
I want to throw one thing in here real quick because I heard a great CBS Sports Minute from earlier today about the Alshon Jeffrey catch and how a lot of other people in his position after the game when the reporters come up to him, how other people would have tried to leave the locker room early or other people would have been like, I didn't cost us the game, I didn't do this, this could have happened after the fact. He didn't make any excuses. The reporters come up to his locker, and all he said was, I cost my team the game, even though realistically they still had plenty of time to go in that game. It's 100% certain that he did, in fact, cost them the game, but he still took it on the chin like a man. That is true character right there. And they close it out. I'm gonna try to get this quote as best right. Character shows through adversity. And give some credit to Alshon Jeffrey for owning his mistakes. So I just wanted to say that one. All right. Any other thoughts, Eric? Did you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, I echo those sentiments of I think it was a classy move by Jeffrey to take responsibility. That's a ball he's got to catch. And, I'm glad to see that he took the responsibility. I mean, that's what you want in a teammate. Listen, own up to it. That's your bad. It cost your team the game. It sucks. But you know what? It sounded like he was ready to go back and fight again next year, and I think his teammates will respect him for that, for the way he handled it. So, echo all the sentiments.
And Michael Thomas is one of the most underrated wide receivers in football. 12 receptions, 171 yards, and a touchdown. Yeah, he didn't get enough credit for what he does in the game. So, Dave, do you have any final thoughts? Otherwise, we're going to move on to predictions for the conference championship.
I mean, I figured you might, want to just throw out and see if Eric has any thoughts on Saturday's games. I mean,
good call.
You missed that whole part, so I figured,
I'm not sure.
They both were basically dominant games, so I wouldn't be surprised if you don't have anything to say, Eric. But I figured at least we'd give you the shot.
Well, what I really want to ask is, did I have my first 4-0 week of the season? I think I did.
I think you have a point there, because wait a minute.
I think it's the first time all season I think I did that, because I'm pretty sure I took the Patriots, the Rams, the Saints, and the Chiefs. But I just want to double check the records, though.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't write the games down last week, so you could have.
I wanted to go back and listen because I'm not sure. I don't remember if I took to the Chiefs, and I want to be honest with people out there.
Well, to throw out a little plug here.
I think you went 4-0. I do. because I know I took the Colts, I took the Cowboys, I took the Pats, and I took the Saints.
To throw out a little plug here, Eric, if you wanted to, you could listen to last week's show and every show we do every week on my YouTube channel. That's MikeAgs121. Go youtube.com/MikeAgs121. All of the SportsZone shows from the last year are on that YouTube channel. So, Eric, you go right ahead and check that out. There's my plug right there. So, but congratulations on your 4-0 week there, Eric. Yes.
So I guess with that, should I kick off this week?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, so we got Kansas City and the Pats. The Patriots, though, the big factor in this game is they're not playing home. They're playing in Arrowhead, and they're predicting bitter cold in Arrowhead, like 9 degrees for game time. It's going to be tough. I'm going with the youth, though, and I'm going with Kansas City over the Pats. I think that I don't know. I feel like it's their year. They're hot. Their offense is tough to stop. Even after they lost Hunt, they figured out a way to keep things rolling. Mahomes is the real deal, and I'm getting behind him in that Arrowhead crowd. And in game number 2, I'm taking the Saints over the Rams again. They beat them once at home. I think they're going to beat them again at home. I think that the Saints are especially tough to stop in that Superdome, and I'm rooting for Breeze this year. I think it could be his year. So I'm taking the Saints, and I'm taking the Chiefs.
I'm picking the Saints and the Chiefs. All right. Well, I am definitely picking the Saints with you on that one. Dave, I'd like to get your predictions first before I go with mine, because I'm still battling myself on the Patriots-Chiefs one. So if you don't mind, you'd like to go first.
Well, I mean, it sounds like it's a clean sweep for the Saints. I just think when it comes down to the combination of everything, I trust Sean Payton and Drew Brees a little bit more than I trust Goff and McVay. I mean, that margin's slim, but I do trust them a little bit more. And I also think that run game of New Orleans is just as good as that run combo that you have in LA. So I like New Orleans for that game. New England, Kansas City, I mean, like Eric said, they're calling for like possibly the coldest NFL game ever played. Like that's how cold it possibly could get during that game. So to me, that means balls are going to be harder to catch, balls are going to be harder to throw, and you're more likely to see a different type of run game. And when it's all said and done, I still just trust New England to be able to figure out the elements and figure out how to come up with a win on the road. So I'm going to take New England and set up the 40-plus-year-old quarterback matchup in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of said, and I said this already, definitely got to pick the Saints here. I mean, when they faced each other earlier in the year and the Saints won, I was kind of the only one who was like, I think the Rams could win if these two teams face again. But I think we all kind of knew the home field advantage was going to be the difference in that one. And I think the experience of Breeze and Peyton also helps. So you got to go with the Saints on that one. And, yeah, honestly, I really want to pick the Chiefs here. But when you look at what the Patriots have done, and I think the stat is the Patriots have never made the Super Bowl in a year where they were on the road in the conference championship game. And I could be wrong on that one, but I don't think I am. So I'm going to go with that. But you look at what Brady and Belichick have been able to put together this season, what they continue to do year in, year out. And then you have the factor of Andy Reid taking on the Patriots again. And you look at how in the playoffs, the Patriots have really had Andy Reid's number every time they face him, no matter what team he's coaching at that time. I can't go against the Patriots here this time. I think they're going to do it. And Dave, like you said, I definitely think we're getting a battle of the 40-year-olds for what could be either one of them's last serious ride here. Even though we say that about Brady every year, and it hasn't happened yet, so God only knows. But yeah, Patriots saying Super Bowl. Absolutely. All right. So it is 9:51 here. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up? Eric, you got on here late. You got anything you'd like to bring up?
No, I mean, I don't know. What were you guys talking about earlier in the show? What did I miss? Catch me up a little.
We've really talked predominantly football. Eric gave a shout out to Derrick Rose for scoring his 10,000th point. We talked about Tom Thibodeau getting fired from a couple weeks ago. And I think that's everything we've talked about, right, Dave?
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
All right. I didn't know if you guys talked about any of the coaching hires or any of that nature. That's what I was asking.
No, we could get into that a little bit. I mean, the only one I would really like to talk about, if we talk about any of them, is the Adam Gase hire by the Jets, because I kind of echo the sentiments of Joe Benigno and Evan Roberts, where I thought that was a pretty bad coaching hire. And I don't understand why you take him when Mike McCarthy wants to come to your organization.
I guess they took him because of the year he had with Peyton, the year he's had with a couple other quarterbacks, where they feel like he was the guy to come in and groom, to groom Darnold. But the other thing too is they needed a coach who, they've said throughout this process is they wanted a coach who was going to come in and coach and not involved in personnel decisions. And I think Gase was the guy willing to do that. I don't think McCarthy really wanted to give up that much control. And I think that's what it came down to. And in the end, that's why they picked Gase.
Well, I mean, two things I'd like to say to that one real quick is I think Gase gets way too much credit for working with Peyton Manning, when by the time he got Peyton Manning was already the Peyton Manning we know of. Mike McCarthy developed Aaron Rodgers from the time he was drafted and really helped make him Aaron Rodgers and helped him adjust his whole release point and everything. And I heard a bunch of stuff about, the way he worked with Rodgers last week and everything. And I don't think McCarthy gets as much credit for working with Aaron Rodgers as Adam Gase apparently gets for working with an already finished product with Peyton Manning. So that's number one. And then I heard McCagnon on Francesa yesterday talking about that while he may have the final say on the 53-man roster, he's still going to work in concert with Adam Gase in terms of putting that together. So, I mean, if McCarthy wanted final say over the 53-man roster, that's one thing. But if he's just going to wind up working with Gase on it anyway, it just makes no sense to me why you would go with Gase over McCarthy. But, Dave, you got any thoughts?
My biggest thought is the ridiculously funny entrance he made to the press conference and how the internet remains undefeated with what they've done with it.
What are you talking the bug eyes? The bug
eyes. I mean, they've had it. The one I saw today was him following a taco in the air with Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On playing. I mean, dude, some of the things that I've seen with that are just too damn funny. But in all seriousness, I don't think it's a horrible hire. I don't think it's a great hire. I think it's you're going to have to just wait and see type of hire, because if you only count the games he coached where he had Tannehill, his starting quarterback, play, he has an above 500 record. I know over his entire span as a coach, he does not have an above 500 record, but with Tannehill, he has an above 500 record. And let's be honest, I would take Darnold over Tannehill. I would. I don't know if you guys feel the same, but I would.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you guys are right though. With McCarthy, I would have taken McCarthy over Gase, but like you said, it really all came down to the fact that McCarthy wanted the majority of influence when it came down to drafting and putting together the roster, and the Jets and the ownership and McCagnon didn't want to give him that power. So here we are. As a Jets fan, to me, it's one of those you just got to wait and see what happens. I mean, I've talked to a few friends of mine that are Jets fans. They're like, I'm done. They don't fucking know what they're doing. It's like, look, for all the good that McCarthy did, he still had Rodgers. He had Favre. And on top of that, I mean, he won one Super Bowl. And then over the last 2 years, they didn't make the playoffs. Over the last 5 years, I think they missed it 3 times. And none of those times did they make it to the Super Bowl when they did make it. So he was losing that team. He was losing his relationship with Rodgers. And the roster that they put together really wasn't anything that good. So I could see why the Jets were hesitant to want to give that type of power to him after the last few years of production.
No, that's fair. And I think maybe it goes to what we were talking about with Thibodeau early in terms of reaching a different generation. I think that might be part of it. So, yeah, I get that on there. Does anybody have any other coaching hires that really stood out to them? Because I look at this latest crop, and none of them really stand out to me. I don't really see anyone that really impresses me that got the coaching hires.
No, it's a bad crop of hires. I'll be honest. I don't know how many of them are going to turn into the next Belichick or the next big guy. But other than that, the only other thing I wanted to really mention to you guys tonight was your thoughts on Kyler Murray declaring for the draft, and is it smart for him to try to see where he can get drafted and maybe play football, or is it smarter for him to stay with the Oakland A's and keep his, I think it's what, $4.7 million guaranteed from them, play some baseball? What's your thoughts?
And I think I heard he tried. I'm sorry, Dave. I think I heard he tried to hold the A's hostage and basically say he wouldn't declare for the NFL if they gave him $9 million, which that speaks to his character a little bit. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to say really quick, going back to the coaching hires, not to, dive into it, but I think the Bruce Arians hire in Tampa Bay is an interesting one, and, maybe he can get the most out of Jameis Winston. Not banking on it, I agree. It's not overly exciting, but out of all the other hires, I think that's the only one that really may carry some weight in the long term.
Sure.
But, yeah, Kyler Murray declaring for the draft, man, I think personally, based on his size, I personally think he would have been better off staying with baseball and going that route. I think it would have gave him a more likeliness of having a successful career. But when it's all said and done, I mean, you got to, the kid did what his heart what he wanted to do, because he's projected as a first-round draft pick. If he has an agent already, they're telling him they're looking at you as a first-round draft pick. But, what team is it? Is it a team in the early first round that maybe trades their second-round pick to get up into the late first round? Like, is it a team looking for a successor? I mean, you've seen New England take a quarterback that in the first round to kind of follow up with Brady. Maybe they're a team that go after him and, with the 28th, or, between the 28th and 32nd pick. I don't know. I from my understanding, what everybody says about him, the kid has a hell of an upside, but there's not much, tape to go off of other than what you've seen, over this past year or so. So, that's always a high risk when you take somebody that doesn't have a lot of, experience playing. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, no matter what, though, he gets drafted in the first round. Worst case scenario, he gets a 4-year contract that's going to be worth more than the A's were paying him anyway. And from there, he can, nobody's saying that he couldn't try to go back to baseball after 4 years. I don't know baseball well enough to know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but just saying, doesn't completely cut out that option. But you go the other way around, football is going to pass you by.
No, I mean, just to kind of answer your question a little bit, I mean, if you think about it, unless I'm mistaken, Russell Wilson is still technically part of the Texas Rangers organization. He shows up in spring training every year. He's not going to make the team, but he's still technically part of the Rangers, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah.
He's a part of the Yankees now. He's still in the Yankees.
Oh, excuse me. I did forget about that. Yeah, you're correct on that. Yeah, I forgot about that. Anyway, the point is still the same. He's still technically a part of a baseball organization. So he could still go that route if it doesn't work out. But I don't know much about Kyler Murray other than he won the Heisman Trophy, even though I'm going to be honest. To me, the Heisman Trophy is one of the most meaningless awards there is, because you look at some of the guys who have won that Heisman Trophy, and then you look at their pro careers. I mean, Danny Werfel and Tim Tebow both won Heisman Trophies, if I'm not mistaken. And look at how their NFL careers went. So,
hey, Tim Tebow won a playoff game with the Cowboys. I mean, that's about as much as Tony Romo could say.
I love Tim Tebow.
Or with the Broncos.
Wait a minute.
With the Broncos.
Romo did, in fact, win one playoff game. Okay, so
that's what I'm saying. He's got as many playoff wins as Tim Tebow.
Just stop it. Just stop it. I know what you're trying to say.
Well, if you're going to badmouth Tebow, I'm just.
Listen, I like Tebow. I like Tebow. You knew damn well the point I was trying to make, and you just wanted to throw Tony Romo under that bus a little bit. All right, fine. He's under the bus. He's got the tire tracks on him. Just leave him alone. Just leave him alone. It's fine. I like Tebow. You know what I'm trying to say, though. All I'm saying is I don't think the Heisman Trophy is an indicator of how a player is going to handle the NFL. So, I mean, you would know more about Murray than I would. I think it comes down to where he thought he'd be able to actually get to the pros quicker. And obviously, if you go into baseball and you're spending at least 2 or 3 years in the minor leagues, if you get drafted in the NFL, you're on a big league roster right off the bat. You have the opportunity to start right off the bat, depending on what situation you come into. I think that's really all it comes down to. As far as whether or not.
Yeah, but there's also a difference in physicality, too. You're going to put your body through a lot more punishment playing football than you are on a day-to-day basis playing baseball. Now, baseball
because you're on
is a war of attrition because you're playing every day, but it's a different type of physical. And, you know, with problems of concussions, with the problems, I mean, you saw what happened to Alex Smith this year. Anything can happen in football. Less likely of those injuries, much less likely in baseball.
But
to me, if I'm going to get paid millions, where does it matter where I'm getting my millions from? I might as well save my body, in my opinion.
Yeah, but if you're going to say that, keep in mind, like Dave said, if you're on the big league roster, you're still going to wind up getting paid that way too. So I get what you're saying. Physicality, you're still going to make more money in the NFL, at least right off the bat, than you will in the same 3-year period.
Shorter career, though. Shorter career.
Depending on where you go in that 3-year period, you're going to be in the NFL. You're going to get paid better in those 3 years than you would with baseball playing on a minor league team. So I'm not saying it's the right move. I personally probably would have chose baseball, but you know, again, I said the Heisman Trophy is not an indicator of where you're going to end up NFL wise. So
Charlie Ward.
What'd you say?
So Charlie Ward, he won the Heisman and then went and played point guard for the Knicks.
Good point. I did forget that one. I agree with that. Well, I tell you what. One thing I wanted to bring up to you, Eric, and maybe this will be how we finish it out, depending on if you guys got anything else to say, because it is 10:03 right now. So both the Mets and Yankees pick up a middle infielder last week. Mets get Jed Lowry. Yankees get DJ Mateo, I have no idea how you pronounce that last name. But what were your thoughts on these two signings?
No, I didn't care at all. I'm waiting for Harper and Machado to drop. I'll be honest. I'm on pins and needles waiting for them to drop. These signings to me, they're minor and like kind of a little meaningless. I mean, yeah, he could be a guy that could fill in here or there, but to me, and I mean, I'm sure that Dave, even not being as into baseball, has heard about Machado and Harper, and I think everybody out there is just waiting for the Machado and Harper shoes to fucking drop.
I am getting sick of waiting for that too. But in the meantime, you guys got a good infielder there, and you know he has played his entire career at Coors. But seeing as how he's going to Coors Field East, I think he's still going to wind up producing pretty good for you guys. And Lowry to the Mets, never in a million years thought it was going to happen. Good move. Not a great move. Not a real needle mover or anything. Good move, though. I liked it. Dave, do you have any thoughts?
I think you know the answer to that question, Mike.
Well, do you have thoughts on Machado and Harper?
Well, I mean, I'll agree, man. I'm getting sick and tired of them on sports radio talking about where they're going to go and what's going to happen and how much money they're going to make over the next, decade. So I'm just ready for them to be done talking about it. So.
Well, you know why they're taking so long, though, right? It's because they're not getting the offers they want, and that's why this leaked thing from Machado and the White Sox, and how they have an 8-year for $240 offer out there for him. But there's a reason he's not taking it. It's because he really doesn't want to play for the White Sox, but he can't get the Yankees to pony up that many years. Or the Phillies for that matter. I think both teams have kind of known, I think, even with Harper too, I don't think that he's getting the years that he wanted. And I think it's kind of like everybody's playing a waiting game, because the Yankees and everybody and the Phillies are out there saying, we got a ton of money, but we only want to pay it for 7 years, maybe 8 times. But really, it's probably 6 or 7 they're looking at. And these guys want 10-year deals, and they want 35. They were looking at, they thought they could go as high as $40 million a year ago or 2 years ago, and now they're kind of getting hit back. And like you said, the offer that the White Sox put out there is that's $30 million a year. That's nothing to shake a stick at. That's a lot of money. there's got to be a reason that he's not taking it. I think it's because he really doesn't want to play for the White Sox, but he can't get these other teams to pony up the dough. And I think it's the same with Harper.
Well, I mean, to go back to something you said originally, I think it's also they're waiting. They want the Yankees to get involved. They desperately want the Yankees to get involved because, like you said, they don't want the White Sox, and I don't think either of them really want the Phillies. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. The Phillies apparently said they're only going to sign one of them. They're not going to sign both of them. So, yeah, it would be nice if this thing ends at some point, though. But if you guys have nothing else, I think now's a good time to wrap up. So I give it to both of you guys for closing remarks here. And we'll give it to Dave Hastings. Anything final to
add? Hey, man, just always a pleasure to be on here. Sorry I haven't been as consistent, but hopefully we can get back to a regular schedule soon. And just happy to be here, man. And love you both. And until next week.
Right back at you, man. Erich Tressler, you and me both have a birthday on Monday, 21st. Any birthday plans
We do.
this weekend?
I got no birthday plans, really. I'm just kind of hanging around. Maybe stop by a buddy's house at some point, maybe Sunday, and catch some of the games. But other than that, nothing really. Just getting old, man. Getting old.
Yeah, man. I'm 36 on Monday, man. I hear what you're saying. I tell you this: who's seeing Glass this weekend? Who is seeing Glass this weekend? Because I know I am at some point. I can't wait for that movie.
I want to see it. I don't know if I'm going to see it this weekend, but I'm going to see it.
Yeah. Dave?
Yeah, definitely want to see it, but I've also wanted to see – I haven't seen Aquaman yet. I haven't seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse yet.
That is an awesome movie. That is a great movie.
I'm so far behind. I mean, the closest thing I got to a movie is I got to watch the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer today. That's the best I got.
I saw that too. You know what movie is worth seeing? Erich, I know I told you this a couple weeks ago. Vice with Christian Bale as Dick Cheney. That is a really good movie.
It looks good.
Yep. All right. So once again, thank you both for being with me here tonight. I will see you both next week. I am Mike Aglioloro. Thank you everybody for listening, and we will see everybody next week.